Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining me for another session of Contracts and Coffee. Everything's an experiment for me, and this is one of my favorite ones for so far. This is my little summer project. Today, I am super, super excited to have a dynamic duo join me. 2-to-1 chat.
There you go. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm going to hold my own. Anybody knows me? Let's go, guys. We've got Colin and Matt from Malbek. So I'll let you guys do a quick intro about your roles. And I always remind everybody, or I try when I don't forget, I'm like, this is not a sponsored event. We are friends in the legal profession and have gotten to know each other and are here to share thoughts. That is the entire purpose of this, because there's just so much information coming at everybody. I like to get quick snippets when I can. So with that, let me just have you guys each do a 30-second intro, and then I'll hop in with some questions.
Go ahead, Colin. You first.
All right. Hey, everyone. Colin Levy here, General Counsel of Malbek. In general, legal tech enthusiast, educator, advocate, author, whatever. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking contracts with all of you. And look forward to a fun conversation.
Hey, and my name is Matt. I'm a founder at Malbek and a long-term CLM practitioner, user, implementer, and now builder of CLM solutions. Also very envious of Colin's LinkedIn following, but I'm not counting. I had the pleasure of writing CLM for Dummies, co-authored with Colin, so that was exciting. And Lucy, you said everything is an experiment for you. I think my whole career has been an experiment. When I was growing up and my dad asked, what are you going to do? I never said, I'm going to build legal tech or CLM. But here I am. So that's how life goes.
Yeah, no, and that's always part of these conversations, to be honest, is I love to hear the journeys. So, and I think people are also curious, especially now where everything's changed for the legal profession drastically. I would say probably in the last 10 years, really drastically. So everybody's kind of going, how do you do that? Or how'd you get into this? Or so I think experimentation is important. And I don't think our profession is going to look the same. Actually, Colin, let me ask you. I mean, you're a lawyer buddy like me, kind of, sort of. You are technically because you're general counsel. So I get to play, but I'm like, lawyer today, ops today, lawyer today, ops. I get to mess with people's brains. But what are you seeing? Like, I mean, you're kind of a poster child for legal profession evolution and changes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a lot of, sorry, I can't come on my desk. Currently right now, I think that what a lot of folks would say is that there's just AI everything, AI obsession with literally everything, and people thinking AI is just the answer to every single issue, problem, whatever. Oh, just ask AI, have AI do that, ask it to do this. And the real issue is that it can give you information, but if you don't have the right information to give it, it's going to give you information based off of whatever limited information you have to provide, which means you're going to be getting an incomplete picture. Not to mention the fact that, like any other tool, the user has to know how to use the tool properly.
Yeah.
And that speaks to, which I think is a larger problem and something that I think we perhaps can talk about because this happens all the time in contract management, is contracting is really about the people. It's about getting people aligned and
it's all about the people. I mean, yes.
Lined up. It's a real problem, and it sounds easy enough. Oh, well, just everyone wants to get this contract done, right? So we just, have everyone participate. No, everyone has their own way of doing something, and you have to get all of them to agree on what that way is. And tech is not going to be the way to get everyone to agree on that process.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I am so sick of the tech is going to solve every problem. And I love technology. That's the beauty. Is I get to say as a legal tech enthusiast, let me now undo everything you think about legal technology. I guess, I have a little bit of I take a little liberty, certainly when it comes to talking about legal tech. Okay, so Matt, you're trying to actually solve problems using technology. I'm going to throw a super softball. Like, what what's it like to try to get lawyers to use technology? Come on, have at it. We're not going to get offended.
Well, it's been a journey trying to get to that stage of how do I talk to legal professionals about change and using technology. Before I got into the CLM space, which was 20 years ago, but who's counting? 2006, I think, is when I got into this space.
We were all child geniuses, Matt. You start with
Yes,
that.
yeah,
Didn't
absolutely.
you and I share crayons when we were designing the first
Exactly.
CLM solution? Yeah. No problem.
In fact, I was in jails and prisons, believe it or not. I was building systems for offender management systems. So forget about teaching how lawyers would use technologies. I had to show correctional officers how to use technology.
I don't know what's harder,
in jails and prisons, okay, for all that.
Okay, you win.
So yeah, I've been trained well, and then comes CLM is the next part of my career. And look, the real fact is nothing is as easy as Microsoft Word and email. If you're expecting CLM to be easier than that, let me tell you, and I'm a CLM provider, but I'll be honest and tell you it's not. Okay, so then don't use CLM if you think you want to stick with Word and email.
Yeah.
Because CLM is much more, it's an enterprise solution, and it requires a bit of love, tender love and care, and a little bit more effort, but the payback is later. So change management is hard. Nobody wants change. People are used to whatever they have, even if it sucks.
Yeah.
I know what's working and what's not. But with change, you have to look at what would happen 1 or 2 years from now in your organization if you don't implement this. And is it worth taking that step and dealing with the bit of a struggle and adoption and getting there for the long-term benefits? And that's where we are. AI is another topic. I'll touch that in a minute. But just the core platform technology and just implementing something new, think about the basics. Change management is key, and you got to think about not doing it more than doing it. And bad things could happen if you didn't do the change.
That's right. No, I think change management, like anything that has the word management in it, starts losing meaning. And I think people are a little bit sick of also hearing the everything management, document management, information management, knowledge management, contract management. You're going, really? At some point, aren't those all overlapping? And people really ignore our constant, broken record of what is the problem you're trying to solve. Please don't look for the management. Well, then we throw in change management on top of it. And like, what's that? Is there a tool for that? No, there's no tool for that. And I think that the disconnect is so broad and deep that this is where we're seeing all the failures. I mean, that this is where things are really falling through this enormous crack. How would you guys tackle this? I mean, either one of you. This is a real life scenario. I don't know who's watching, but here it goes. When you have a general counsel that expressly says, I'm not really interested in all this people and process stuff. I need to know which tech we're going to be using so that we're going to be the best, the best legal team out there. Almost verbatim. And I was like, that's a tough conversation to have. Easier, as an advisor, I have to share the bad, difficult news. That's our job. We don't bend on that. That doesn't always make everybody happy, but I'm more worried about the people inside that legal department who've been tasked with going and quote unquote finding the latest technology to use. Generally, of course, we could talk about contracting and CLM specifically because it fits right in, because guess what was the top pain point after our research across this enormous law department? Gee, contracts anyone? So I'd love to hear from either of you. And I'm sure you have customers like this. They come at you like, we want to buy, we like your tech. And when you're like, are you ready? Have you thought about it? So what would be, how do you respond? She's like, great. Yeah, I would like to buy that gadget. Look, let me buy the widget.
Yeah, I mean, what I would start off by saying, Matt, I think could probably tell you a million different stories about this, but I think the way to respond, and this is more of kind of just a sort of understanding how people operate perspective, which is accept what they're saying, even if you think it's utterly ridiculous, because it in some ways it is. Right. And I think what you need to do is you need to say, okay, and then ask questions that help show the individual that actually they perhaps need to do a little more research and a little more work before they start going after something. And that means asking questions that provide data points for them to realize, oh, yeah, I maybe want to get to know this better, get to know that better. And that starts with, well, how do contracts show up on your desk? Who reviews something? Who is tasked with making sure that the terms align with your risk profile or your finance, demands or what have you? And if the answer is I don't know, well, if you don't know, putting a system in place is just going to make that you don't know into an even bigger you don't know and you should know. And it's just going to highlight the problems that you have and make them incredibly bright and just red and shining in your face the whole time.
Yeah. Matt, how far does that get you in those conversations? Because I don't know, at some point when reason kind of doesn't land and you're like, oh, how do you break through? Do you walk away? I mean, especially as a tech provider, I mean, what do you do in those scary situations?
So I think, anyone looking at technology, and if the legal team is tasked with finding something, first set the expectations, not to sugarcoat it, that, oh, we're going to find this beautiful thing and it's going to be perfect and everyone's going to love it. I think many organizations paint this picture because if you start that high, you can only go down when the reality hits. So why don't you set the expectation a little bit lower, saying, hey guys, this is going to be hard. The first 3 months or 6 months is going to be really hard. But long term, here's where it gets better. And then you got something to build on.
Yeah.
Second thing is, when you're looking at technology, I often hear about, when we look at RFPs or requirements, they are so far out in the future, like what will I need 5 years from now? Don't overly complicate things. Look at your current problems and what you need for the next 2-3 years. And then choose the technology and the vendor that will get you there 5 to 10 years from now. And all the time, and Lucy, you probably see this, people ask for, what's your roadmap?
Yep.
I say differently. Show me what you guys released in the last 12 months. I want to see how fast that vendor is innovating rather than this PowerPoint slide deck of the future. Because then you see the reality, right? Is this technology evolving or is it slow as hell? Yep. So nobody looks at the past, right? Everybody wants to see the future, but the past will tell you.
Let me jump into that one. So here's what I always say too, when they talk about, what's the best systems, and not just, this isn't just applicable to CLM, but of course that's what we're here to talk about. But best systems. And of course there's a lot of noise and the marketing is brilliant and all that good stuff. I always ask, don't talk about the current customers because they should be happy. They're in the honeymoon stage. They better be happy. I want to know renewals. Yeah. And I want to know actual consumption numbers, because any SaaS provider is tracking that or should be. It's amazing how quiet the conversation gets about renewals and consumption, right? Is that kind of aligns with your whole like, hey, let's look back at what's happened.
And a lot of those metrics are tracked. User adoption, user metrics are tracked by every vendor. The release notes are documented. Right. Yeah. So you can actually see what came in each release, how frequently, how many defects were covered versus how many enhancements. So there's a lot of data that people don't even pay attention to because the typical process that has never changed is answer all these questions. Do you meet it? Do you have to customize it? Do you have to configure it? Do you integrate with it? What's your roadmap? How many customers do you have?
Yeah.
And even there, it depends on your industry and your size, because what's a good thing? Having 100 large global customers or 10,000 small companies across.
And can you do both well? Can you really cater to? Can you cater to both equally well and across vertical? You mentioned something about industries. I want to just pick on that for a second because I am seeing a bit of a trend. First of all, I'm discovering various, let's call them CLM providers because they really are trying to sell an end-to-end solution, which I've got some schizophrenic thoughts on that a little bit. Or maybe that's not the right term to use, but certainly some thoughts that are in opposite, I think, directions sometimes. But industry-specific CLM providers, I think, are doing quite well. they're doing it quietly, which is interesting because they are focused on just their niche. And maybe in that industry, they're pretty well known or very well known. And there's a couple of key providers across industries, whether it's kind of there's healthcare and providers. There's certainly manufacturing, supply chain, construction. I'm seeing more and more, and the list kind of goes on. But how should a buyer or a GC inside of a very clear, industry type of company think about it? Do they go general or do they go specific?
So general would not work. And we do have industry specific customers. And in our early years, I learned when we were demoing, your typical CLM is all about, hey, make a request. It'll help you with authoring, red line negotiation, and basically cycle time, right? Getting your contracts done faster.
Yeah.
There are certain industries where we have customers, and in those early days, it was a aha moment for us. Like they said, Matt, we don't give a crap about getting these contracts signed fast. We have a different pain point. It's about what we have agreed to that with that supplier or customer or partner 10 contracts ago, and those still apply in my new contract. I can't just start with my boilerplate. We do more amendments than contracts. So your whole contracting cycle time scenario doesn't work, right? So there's a lot of different scenarios in specific industries. So yes, they do have to either ask peers in their industry, what do they use? Or ask the vendor how many customers in that industry they have, because that will tell you if it's a fit for your needs, because not all CLMs are equal and not all companies' CLM requirements are equal. Some don't do contracts. They do a lot more amendments. Some don't care about cycle time. It's about what's the clauses that are used in the contract that are more important and negotiated rather than getting to signature.
Yeah.
So a variety of use cases.
Well, and that's the intersection between theory and go ahead, Colin. Theory versus actual practice. That's I think what we see crashing over and over again.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I was just going to jump in and say that when folks that are GCs say, well, I want to evaluate this vendor because my friend at this other company uses them. That shouldn't be your deciding factor on whether to use something or not. If they're in the same industry, okay, maybe that's a little more meaningful. But if they're in a completely different industry and you're asking your friend what they use, that's like asking a friend that you have, that's very good at doing one thing, asking them to do something completely different and saying, hey, you're my friend, do it for me. Like, I'm not going to ask a friend who perhaps is a really good electrician to do painting if they're never painted before. It's just, you don't ask a friend to do everything for you. That's just not how it works. But it also speaks to sort of this odd quirk of lawyers and the legal industry in general, and that it's very cliquey and very insular in some ways. And people really go by what their friends in this space are telling them they should do or should not do. And they attach a large degree of credibility and importance to those statements, which then in turn colors their view of how they view vendors and things. And it's tough to get around that. But that's why I often mention that it's great to get input from a friend, but that shouldn't be your sole deciding factor for what you evaluate or what you use, because that's a decision that shouldn't just be based off of someone saying, hey, you should use this or you should not use that.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think when you say friend, and I'm thinking kind of a really good general contractor, that, if you need a plumber or an electrician at some point, you've got an amazing general contractor, probably done a little plumbing and a little electrical. But when the problem gets nuanced enough, you need an expert, and a good general contractor will bring in that expert.
Yeah, they'll know the expert to bring in, right?
They'll know the experts to bring in. Or if you're a really good plumber, you tend to know a good electrician, and you don't pretend to do that. So that's an even more interesting reference, really. I love when a really deeply technical person's like, I don't know anything about that or do that, but I know I got a guy. And anybody who says I got a guy, you're like, yes, please, because we're all hungry for that trusted advisor to come in. Okay, we got to get to AI before we run out of time, because nothing can be talked about besides AI, whether it's my parents, by the way. My dad, who can, is pressing his iPhone and butt dialing me. He wants to talk about AI over dinner, which isn't just shows you how deep it is. obviously our kids, our neighbors, our friends, everybody's using it. So we got to get some latest and greatest from you two. And I want two different perspectives. Matt, let's take the technical. Where's it going? Where is it today versus where it was just yesterday? And then Colin, I'll let you do the whole, but here's what's happening with lawyers and using AI.
Sure.
Matt, what's happening on the tech?
All right. So I'll take 2 minutes so that I can give time to our GC over here to speak from a legal perspective. So of course, AI is everywhere. We talk about it in every webinar, every meeting, every demo, everywhere. Good news is compared to 2-3 years ago, and again, we're talking about generative AI now and agentic AI. The traditional, AI that we had where it would extract key information out of a document and all, that's been around for a long time. But with Gen AI, LLMs and all are evolving fast. And in the last 2-3 years that it's been in the market, adoption is a lot better. People are actually trying it. They've gotten the approvals to use a specific LLM or a specific tool, or within certain boundaries, use it. So that's good news. So now at least we have some traction. Mm-hmm. Where people are struggling, and I hate the fact that then technology gets blamed, is how they prompt AI. You ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer, right? And the example I love using is like talking to my 20-year-old son. You ask a question, you get exactly that answer and nothing else, no context around it. It's like yes and no.
How was
right?
school? Fine. How was school?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, exactly. Did you book that ticket? No. Well, okay. How are you going to get there? What else did you do? Oh, well, you didn't ask me. Oh, I got a train ride this, or I got a ride with my friend. Oh, okay. Which friend? This person. You have to prompt. Instead, you could have just said, hey, did you book your plane tickets? No. If not, then who are you coming home with? Do you have a ride? Who is that person? Is it a car, train? You got to prompt that way. And now you get the full answer from that kid.
I like this. Is one of the better analogies.
So
that's great. Yeah.
I told my son the same thing. He was cracking up, like, why are you using me, Dad, in your pitch? But I said, this is a reality. This is how you respond to me.
Yeah, we pay the bills. It's our prerogative.
Exactly. I have no NDA with my son, so I can say it. But so prompt engineering is evolving, and what we as technologists are doing is trying to put the prompts pre-built in the solution so you don't have to do it. Obviously, it's not going to have everything you can imagine in your head built in, but I think as people try to implement select technology and use AI, 2 things I'll suggest is internally create that prompt engineering training or AI experts. Don't expect every lawyer, every admin, every person to know AI. That's just not going to work. Second is be realistic about it. Don't take the entire contract and say, I want AI to analyze every clause from preamble to signature and every exhibit. What are your 5 to 10 most negotiated and most business critical clauses? Focus on that. Then do the next 10 clauses after that, right? Don't try to over-engineer that entire contract, because here's the reality. LLMs are accurate if you define boundaries and scope. If you tell it to look for 100 things across 1,000 contracts, it's not going to give you the same results as asking for 5 things in 50 contracts. So be very specific and be mindful of that scope. And the last thing I'll say is, Colin, you started the call with this. It's about people more than technology. At the end, AI is going to suggest language, but imagine an AI bot negotiating with the counterparty's AI bot. They'll never come to a resolution. But I put Colin with a GC of my customer, they'll come to a resolution on that contract, right? There's an emotion attached, there's logic and reasoning attached, and you come to an agreement, because by design, contracts are designed for all the negative scenarios. What if you breach? What if you terminate? What if you do this? What if everything is about a negative use case, which hopefully will never happen. But all those negative use cases, you do need human involvement. So take AI and then apply that human logic to it.
I love that, Colin. Please jump in, because I think that what Matt, you hit on, that is such a great example of that limitation of that the humans who need to actually negotiate to a conclusion, because we are trained to find every, as you called it, negative use case. Case sounds like you're talking like a developer. Lawyers, we see issues. I'll just translate for the lawyers here. We look for every single issue. Issue spotting
Yes.
is what we learned for 3 years, and we're rewarded. The more issues you spot, the better you do on your exam, right, Colin? So how do you?
The more red lines, the better you're doing. More red
Right.
lines.
So, which actually is a really great segue into the whole working with AI thing, and because I think that lawyers, for some strange reason, perhaps because they just are thinking too much like a human when they are asking AI to do something, is they're asking it to do something, assuming the AI tool has the full context of what is being asked for and doesn't understand all the nuance, all the issues that are related to this seemingly generic, broad question. So to get around that is think about as if you're talking to someone who's not a lawyer, who's not who basically has no context whatsoever, and be in some ways actually be pedantic, literally lay out every single thing that you want the tool to consider when answering a question, as if you're answering a law school exam in some ways. Lay out all the things, all the issues, and that will lead you to getting a better output. And yes, it may take a few tries. Yes, it may take, breaking up the question into multiple parts. And you would think that a lawyer actually would be very good at that, because that is literally what lawyers do all the time with drafting clauses or reviewing things, or in law school as law students answering law exam questions, is they're breaking down a larger issue into its parts. And that's how you have to think about when you're interacting with an AI tool, is breaking down the larger questions in parts that make up that broader question, because AI is not going to assume anything. It's just going to read literally word for word what you're asking it, and then find matches to every single letter and word in that input with its data. And if you don't give enough information, it's going to match up with something that to the AI is like, oh, I found the match. There you go. But to you, you're going to be like, this is completely, utterly ridiculous, and isn't what I'm looking for. The other problem, I think, is that generative AI, largely most of the tools are, for some reason, designed to be people pleasers, meaning they're designed to give you what you're looking for, make it seem like this is what you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
When in case that's not always the case. And so you have to kind of not fall victim, if you will, to the people pleasing aspect of these tools. You can think about it in terms of negotiating a contract, and that you want to make both sides happy to some degree, but you want to also make both sides unhappy to some degree. You want to leave both parties feeling like they got some of what they wanted, but not everything. And that's what compromise is about. Likewise, with AI, you want to make sure that you are giving enough information so what you're getting out of it is not just what you want to hear, but what you should hear or should be seeing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're down to our last 2 minutes, and I think that is super, super healthy advice. I now understand why my little interactions are so polite, and why I'm slowly falling in love with all my little chat friends. They're so polite to me, right? They're always like, "Hi, Lucy. Can I help you with today, Lucy?" I'm like, "You know me." So there's a little bit of a mind game going on here for sure. We do have a lot of lawyers, of course, that are in this mode of they need to understand AI. They don't have the time and bandwidth, or frankly, the skills and the background to deeply understand it. What I'm seeing, and I think you guys are probably getting a lot of these questions as well, I see legal teams now becoming more educated on asking the right questions, but I don't know if they know what to do with the answers. Which LLM model you use? We want to know. And you're like, okay, boom, you throw out an answer. Okay. And then they're like, I'm seeing a lot of like not knowing what to do with that. So last minute, and I know everybody's got hard stops and things, but last minute, I just need to know, what is the right question that the legal team should be asking, and then how did they take that answer, real quickly?
I'll make it very brief. Certainly find out which LLMs they're using. Focus on their security levels and how configurable is it to restrict certain users from using it for use cases, because you don't want to open up AI to the entire user base. Try to limit it to those people who you trust, because there's the ethical and responsible use policies that you should have in place, and make sure that the technology allows you to configure that.
Love it. Colin, last thoughts?
Last thought is experiment. I know lawyers
Love that.
especially don't love that word, but that's the only way to learn is just to experiment. So that would be my advice: is experiment, iterate, and learn and adapt.
And assume some risk, guys. I'm going to leave it with, we got to take smart risks or business can't happen. That's a fact, and that's not new. And there's nothing to do with AI. That is legal work. We got to assume.
Take a chance.
Take a chance.
Exactly.
Oh, we love that's coming up. I've got an ABBA-themed coffee chat coming in. Take a chance on me. Thank you guys so much. We'll let everybody get back to their day. Coffee, snacks, happy hour, whatever. More to come next week. Stay tuned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.